Yo, hello. I honestly didn't think I would be covering this Pokemon this early, but we're going to be looking at a new Pokemon that was added for this format, Hisuian ARCANINE, which is a Fire Rock type, basically this literally the same as Arcanine, except like 5 extra attack, less special attack, less speed, little more HP, but you also get, most importantly, the Fire Rock typing. And while into this format and like this seeing Hisuian ARCANINE at first, I thought this would actually be a really bad thing for it. But in reality, it's not as bad as you would think. And that's because of this, look at all these flying types that get added to the game, right? We get the Kanto birds, the Genie trio, mons like Hisuian Bravery, even though that won't be good. Namorous added as well. The only like bad of these birds that was added was like Landorus isn't particularly good for Hisuian ARCANINE, but still this head smash straight up, you know. But yeah, in general, there's so many new flying types: Zapdos forms, Moltres forms, Articuno forms, the Tornadus Thundurus as well. None of those Pokemon like Hisuian ARCANINE, and that kind of allows it to kind of create this niche for itself, where it's actually a pretty scary offensive attacker. And you can technically use stuff like Rockhead, making for a kind of scary Pokemon this with like no recoil damage. Use Choice Band, use Life Orb for this too. I don't think this is probably going to be the most effective set in the world, but it is a decent option. Like, really, this has a lot of firepower, right? This Head Smash being a 150 base move, only 80% accurate, but you're not taking the recoil anymore, so it becomes like pretty decent value. And that's not too bad. It's not too bad. But in general, I do think the ultimate set is probably going to be this kind of more like the normal Arcanine, per se, where you just have, oh, you just are a good offensive mon, you can use Flare Blitz, use E-Speed, and instead of running like Wisp like Arcanine usually does, you just put Rock Slide on it instead, so you can take advantage of that Rock type stab. And the kind of increase to your attack stat as well. Like, this is not a bad set by any means. You can go a little bit of speed too to make sure you're outspeeding. It's a good speed line for this. I guess it's just a speed creep game between like Goldango and stuff, right? You do something like this and that would be pretty okay. You can go faster too, and you can go more offensive as well. This you can run like Figgy Berry, go Terra type Grass, and it's kind of like a normal Arcanine in a way. And it's kind of like a decent concept to run with it. You can also do something like Assault Vest with like Fire Rock typing as well, and let's take advantage, yet again, let's take advantage of this excellent offensive coverage. You can even run a Wild Charge if you want, but Wild Charge isn't as necessary thanks to having this Rock Slide. So you can go a move like this, I guess Close Combat actually. Sounds pretty good. So you can go like this. Also go Play Rough. Oh, it doesn't get Play Rough anymore. Go like Psychic Fangs, it's a neat move too. So that's like a decent kind of line of options in general. I think when it comes to like partners, that's because of like Hisuian ARCANINE as a Pokemon. You actually have a fair bit of Pokemon you can just run, right? Because Hisuian ARCANINE is having naturally good offensive typing. Putting it next to mons like Chien-Pao, Dragonite, and trying to like maximize on the damage potential is pretty nice. And Hisuian ARCANINE kind of helps Chien-Pao, Dragonite deal with steel types. Like Goldango, it could be a pretty big problem because like, you can like Terra type steel to get around your Sucker Punches. And all of a sudden Goldango gets through like everything you have. But with having Hisuian ARCANINE, that becomes a little bit less of a problem. And then you can maximize this with like more offensive Pokemon like Water. Put them on like Rillaboom here. And what's make sure I'll just put Moongus. Go Moongus. And then you can add, I'll just put Thundurus here for speed control, like T-Wave next to it. Sounds pretty good. And this is like a decent concept that you can run with this kind of team. Taunt. This gives you kind of an idea of a decent style you can approach with. You can just Sash Urge. Actually, no. Mystic Water. yeah, the main thing about concepts like this is this: you have technical speed control, you have Intimidate with Hisuian ARCANINE, and you have this a lot of like option coverage off of that alone, which creates a bit of an advantage for you that normally you wouldn't like expect to this have, right? Off rip. With like Thunder Wave, yeah, Wild Bullet Storm for speed control. You can even run like Swords Dance here. And you have moves like Ice Spinner. You can take advantage of this. How like good of a Pokemon Chien-Pao and D-Knight are together. Making for a pretty like, frankly, this is overall solid core, right? This is an overall solid core. You get the Fire, Water, Grass. Let's get a lot of decent coverage here. You can go Terra Normal. This as well. And this is a nice little sample we got here. There we go. Let's get that done quick. You probably want more bulk on this, but I'm just gonna full lazy it. Yeah, this is a nice little sample team you can run with this Pokemon that has decent potential. Rocky Helmet's also a pretty good item just to allow you to get through Urshifu a little bit better. For sure, for sure. Yeah. And of course the set, this Flare Blitz, E-Speed, Rock Slide, Protect. Like, the amount of this pure damage this threatens on an opponent is honestly kind of insane. Because there's not really a great way to wall all these Pokemon together offensively. Because, like, the flying types, you have the Hisuian ARCANINE, you have the Chien-Pao to hit it. Grass types, you just have Aerial Ace on Dragonite, you have Arcanine again. Urshifu covers a lot of the other stuff, too. Bulky Swords Dance is a pretty fun set in general as well. There's a lot of sets that just create enough problems to be very hard to deal with. Let's run Bulky Thundy. Probably Mental Herb would be good on this too, but let's make this timid. Let's do that for simplicity's sake. That's a nice little concept you can have with Hisuian ARCANINE. You can also do stuff like, let me think. Like Hisuian ARCANINE puts like Cress, and you can use that as an Intimidator next to Cress, and use it for his offensive stab still. That's like not too bad. Though I think in general, like mods like Heatran, it kind of like condenses the Heatran and Landorus into one slot in a way, which is kind of interesting. And you can also add Pokemon like Rillaboom, and you start filling out a little bit of a core. Let me think. Go Urshi here. Ursaluna. And this is something of a decent little core you can have. That's like the fake out, the coverage. Yeah, the Hisuian ARCANINE acting more supportive here and more used for us to intimidate and kind of like acting as what a Heatran could in this slot and like converging Heatran and the Landorus into one Pokemon to open up the door to run Pokemon like Ursaluna, right? Which running Ursaluna and Landorus together is okay, but not necessarily the greatest in the world. So having that kind of condension into a Hisuian ARCANINE is actually kind of worthwhile, I think. And that's another like alternative option. What do you think on the last Pokemon real quick? And yeah, actually, it's Fire, Water, Grass. You get this one on a Flutter, I guess. Let's go to throw a Flutter there. But yeah, that's another concept. I won't actually make a spread for that one, but it gives you a decent idea of like some of the places you can just put a Hisuian ARCANINE in. But in general, I think the big key of this Pokemon is try to put it in places where you have some kind of control around it. Like you can put Tornadus there, for example, too. Like this other team, we had like Thundurus next to it. We had a Cresselia next to it. And like Rilla. Those are control options that are pretty suitable to how Arcanine Hisui wants to play. As you want to be able to get a Rock Slide off, and you want to get like the damage potential unlocked of this Pokemon. And once you do, you're able to really like make a difference in a game. So there's any Pokemon that can kind of like put itself together enough to allow your Hisuian Arcanine to like just get some damage potential going is a general good option for it. So those would be the things I would mainly be looking at when making a team around Hisuian Arcanine. But yeah, let's see. Let's go Flutter, Urstark, and then good water type. Basky Legion, yo. And yeah, that's another kind of concept. I won't have the pace for all of these like we did the time with the Gooter video. Kind of more this like spitfiring, like this kind of ideas. You can also do something like this, Indeedee, Drifbloom. Get the Tailwind. Actually, there's... No, it doesn't. Get Chimpal. This is another example of a concept. This any place you can use Hisuian Arcanine for this is full offensive potential is just a good place for it to be. And that's really going to be a theme with a lot of Hisuian Arcanine teams in general. Like, what teams do you have that can't necessarily deal with flying types well? Can you just put a Hisuian Arcanine in and allow it to like this start to pop off a little bit, right? But once you get those kind of scenarios for it, then it becomes like a very hard Pokemon to deal with in general. So yeah, that's kind of like the general concept of I think how you want to play Hisuian Arcanine. This with any place where you can take advantage of his offensive coverage to the best of your ability. Though also it can kind of just gel into places where Arcanine is as a bit of a role condenser, as you see with the Cresselia team. We're using it in a way like Heatran and Landorus together, so you can condense that role down and you can more run Mon like Ursaluna in a setting that better fits it, right? And that's kind of the thing about this Hisuian Arcanine in general. All the main value of what it gets is you're condensing Pokemon like Heatran, Landorus, you're condensing like an Arcanine down into this Fire Rock offensive typing that is not very common in VGC. Of course, like the only Fire Rock mon that ever got like any viability was a mon called Colossal, and really the only reason that Pokemon became like insane was Steam Engine plus Weakness Policy plus G-Max, right? Because it would just do residual damage, you have to self-target yourself, proc a Weakness Policy. But since you can't really do that anymore without G-Max, the Fire Rock typing, you kind of have to just rely on its existence in itself, which is not necessarily the greatest, but this is one of the few metagames in Regulation D where you're going to have this chance to use Hisuian Arcanine to exploit all these flying type Pokemon that are coming, the Tornadus, the Thundurus. So anything you can do to just exploit the flying types is going to be like very useful. And Hisuian Pokemon is one of those Pokemon that can actually do that. I do think in general, I think Intimidate sets that are kind of Arcanine-esque will generally be better. You can also run like Safety Goggles if you don't want to run like Terra Grass and run a Terra like Water instead, which is also very good. And this having like a bit of a Hisuian Arcanine roll to it. And yeah, that's the general thoughts I have on Hisuian Arcanine. Let me know what you think of the Pokemon. It's definitely one of the more interesting ones because like it's viable, but it has a viability kind of ceiling since there's mons like Urshifu Water, there's mons like Basky Legion that you have to make sure you can deal with. But as long as you can deal with those and you can play like this fine kind of Pokemon game, then Hisuian Arcanine starts to become like this stronger and stronger as you go. And this overall, this kind of okay Pokemon. And yeah, that's it for this one. Later.